Alright, lately I've been looking back and finding myself really fascinated by pivotal moments in football. So today, I'm going to make a compilation video of all the events I know that completely changed how we view the football world today. Let's get started. 1. The Maracanazo and the birth of the yellow jersey, Brazil. Kicking off this list is Brazil. When you mention Brazil, you immediately think of the yellow and green kits and the samba rhythm. But that isn't the crystallization of their entire history. Rather, it was a change that happened after just one match. In 1950, the World Cup returned after a 12-year hiatus due to World War II. Brazil was flying high. They scored 22 goals in just 5 games, played beautiful attacking football, and had the home advantage with the newly inaugurated Maracanã Stadium, a cathedral with a capacity of over 200,000 people. The press had already printed headlines reading, "Brazil, the champions." The gold trophy was polished and the victory parade was prepared, just like how Arsenal has been preparing for the title for the last 3 years. The rules back then were different. The final round was a group of 4 teams. Brazil only needed a draw against Uruguay to become champions. When Friasa scored the opener early in the second half, the Maracanã looked ready to explode. Singing, drums, cheering, all blending together. No one believed a tragedy could happen. But Uruguay said, "Okay, Mr. Newspaper Champion, go fetch me a glass of orange juice." Minute 66, Schiaffino equalized. Then, in the 79th minute, Alcides Guija drove down the right flank, suddenly shooting into the near post, beating goalkeeper Barbosa. 2-1. The entire Maracanã fell into dead silence. Barbosa later recalled, "In that moment, the entire country of Brazil collapsed." Brazilians call it the Maracanazo, the blow of Maracanã. But that blow didn't just knock out a team, it created a massive butterfly effect. From one conceded goal, Brazil entered 8 years of trauma. They changed their kit colour from white to yellow and green to erase the bad luck, and birthed a new football philosophy, the dazzling samba, yet incredibly calculated. From the Maracanazo, they nurtured a desire for revenge, creating a golden generation with Pelé and Garrincha to win the 1958 World Cup. Okay, so Brazil needed 8 years. How many years does Man United need? I don't know. If you know, comment down below. A single conceded goal seemed like just a sporting defeat, but it became a massive catalyst, changing the identity of an entire football nation. That is the power of the butterfly effect. Just one flap of a wing at the Maracanã changed the flow of history. 2. Leicester City, Premier League 2015 to 16. Next up is the most exciting league on the planet, the Premier League. The 2015 to 16 season started like any other, with all eyes on Chelsea, Manchester City, Arsenal, or Manchester United. Leicester City? They had just narrowly escaped relegation the previous season. Their manager, Claudio Ranieri, was mocked by the media as an obsolete old man. No one even glanced at them except to predict their relegation. Bookmakers in England set their odds of winning the title at 5,000 to 1, odds lower than the probability of Man United recovering their capital from Jadon Sancho. But then, a chain of events unfolded. In August, Leicester beat Sunderland 4-2. A lucky match, perhaps, but it ignited the team's spirit. Jamie Vardy, a former factory worker, couldn't stop scoring. Riyad Mahrez, a practically unknown Algerian player, became a nightmare for every defense. And at the back, N'Golo Kante, the guy nobody knew before, swept up every ball like a vacuum cleaner. Those names sound familiar, right, guys? Yeah, after this season, Leicester sold them all. Meanwhile, the big giants kept shooting themselves in the foot. Chelsea collapsed, Mourinho was sacked, Arsenal and Man City missed their chances in key matches. While they stumbled, Leicester just kept winning. They didn't play pretty tiki-taka, but their counter-attacking speed, unity and fighting spirit turned them into a phenomenon. On May 2nd, 2016, when Tottenham was held to a 2-2 draw by Chelsea, Leicester officially won the Premier League with those initial 5,000 to 1 odds. A number meaning if you bet $1, you'd have enough to buy a brand new car. This title wasn't just a fairy tale. It changed how small clubs view their ability to compete, forced the big boys to overhaul their strategies, and made the football world believe that sometimes, maybe a newly promoted Sunderland could win the Premier League this year. Why not? 3. The team that vanished overnight, Grande Torino. Leicester winning the Premier League was insane, but it's nothing compared to this event. Do you guys believe that a top tier team like Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, or Man City could simply disappear overnight? Probably not, but in 1949, that actually happened. First, let's go back to the 1940s. Grande Torino was an invincible team. Back then, there was no Champions League, so domestic leagues were everything. Serie A was considered the number one league in Europe, and Torino won it 5 times in a row. To put it simply, Torino was the daddy of Europe. The Italian national team even fielded lineups with 10 out of 11 players coming from Torino. But the unthinkable happened. On May 4th, 1949, the Fiat G212 plane carrying Grande Torino, the strongest team in Europe at the time, was flying back from Lisbon to Italy after a friendly match with Benfica. It encountered thick fog and crashed straight into the Superga hill near Turin. All 31 people on board died, including 18 key players. Torino wasn't just a football club, they were a national symbol. But in a single moment, an entire generation of talent vanished. This remains the most tragic event in Italian football history, a cold, foggy wind that completely reshaped the map of Serie A and the national team. The chain reaction: Italian football fell behind. The national team, which relied almost entirely on Torino players, fell into crisis. At the 1950 World Cup, the Italian team was so traumatized by air travel that they traveled to Brazil by boat. Exhausted, they were eliminated early. It took them nearly 2 decades to recover. The power vacuum left by Torino paved the way for Juventus, Inter, and Milan to take turns dominating Serie A. The Three Kings race of Italian football was essentially shaped by this very disaster. Torino never truly recovered. Although they won titles later on, Torino never regained the aura of Grande Torino. From being the dominant symbol, they became the underdog in their own city, living forever in the shadow of Juventus. Italians call it the day Italian football died. A fateful collision with the Superga Hill didn't just take the lives of a team, but shifted the entire landscape of Italian football for decades to come. 4. The origin of red and yellow cards. To change the mood a bit, let me tell you the legend of the penalty cards. I used to think cards had existed since football was born, but actually, they appeared quite late in the second half of the 20th century. I guess back then, they didn't have Pepe or Ramos yet. Specifically, in 1962, the World Cup took place in Chile. Instead of being remembered for beautiful goals or superior skills, it became famous for a match called the Battle of Santiago. The context started with the press. Some Italian newspapers published a series of articles mocking Chile as poor and backward, describing the people with utter contempt, even harsher than today's worst tabloids. National pride surged, so when Italy met the host Chile in the group stage, the atmosphere was basically a war zone. And then, the match turned into a literal boxing ring. Players punched each other in the face. There were hair pulling, kneeing, and open kicking. English referee Ken Aston was so helpless he had to ask the police to run onto the field to intervene. But even the police struggled to control the chaos. Chile won 2-0, but the result was secondary. What remained was the shock of the violence. How could a global sport descend into such anarchy? From that shock, referee Ken Aston struggled to find a way to speak clearly to players, avoiding arguments or vague gestures. One day, while looking at traffic lights, green, yellow, red, he had an idea. Yellow for a warning, red for stop. And so, the yellow and red card system was born, applied starting from the 1970 World Cup. In other words, the MMA match of 1936, oh wait, I mean 1962, created a butterfly effect that changed football forever. From then on, every player, from Pelé and Maradona to Messi and Ronaldo, has had to live under this red and yellow law. 5. Lampard's ghost goal. Let's go back to the World Cup, specifically the round of 16 in 2010. England faced Germany, a classic derby between two footballing giants with a lot of history. Germany started strong, leading 2-0. But in the 37th minute, Upson headed in a goal to make it 1-2. Just 70 seconds after that goal, Frank Lampard unleashed a long-range shot. The ball hit the crossbar, bounced down, and crossed the line by half a meter. The entire Bloemfontein Stadium erupted. But then, referee Jorge Larionda waved his hand. No goal. At that exact moment, the giant screen in the stadium showed the slow-motion replay to the audience, and everyone saw the ball cross the line. The English players looked up, furious enough to rush over and argue. But FIFA rules at the time forbade using stadium screens for complaints. After the match, Lampard admitted, "I didn't even celebrate too loudly because I was sure it was a goal." Back home, the English press went nuclear. The Sun ran the headline, "Thieves," while the BBC sarcastically remarked, "Football is still being played in the 19th century." The script could have been 2-2, but that call caused the English team to collapse, eventually losing 1-4. Germany advanced, while England went home in humiliation. But that very moment saved football in the long run. FIFA president Sepp Blatter had to publicly apologize to the England team, an extremely rare occurrence. Immediately after, FIFA rushed to test goal line technology, and by the 2014 World Cup, the technology was used for the first time to determine goals. Actually, a similar event had happened before. In 1966, England won the World Cup thanks to a ghost goal by Geoff Hurst against Germany. 44 years later, it felt like football was collecting the debt. The English were bitter, but the entire world benefited from this mistake. 6. The death of Marc-Vivien, the shock that changed football forever. Here is a heartbreaking story. On June 26, 2003, during the Confederations Cup semi-final, Cameroon faced Colombia in Lyon. In the 72nd minute, Marc-Vivien, a key midfielder who had played for West Ham, Lyon, and Man City, suddenly collapsed on the pitch without any contact. At first, the crowd thought it was just a cramp, but lay motionless, his eyes wide open. Doctors rushed in, spending 45 minutes trying to resuscitate him, but they couldn't restart his heart. The conclusion later revealed suffered from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a condition that previous medical checkups had completely failed to detect. He left us at the age of 28, with his career burning bright. The atmosphere in the stadium was incredibly heavy. Many Cameroonian teammates played the rest of the match in tears because FIFA decided the game must go on. In the final against France, when Thierry Henry scored the only goal, he immediately pointed to the sky, a moment that was later immortalized in a photo hung in the corridors of the Stade de France as a tribute. From the shock of Foe's death, football changed from the roots up. FIFA mandated much more rigorous periodic heart screenings for players. In every stadium, an AED, automated external defibrillator, became mandatory equipment, and this very change has saved lives. The most famous example, Christian Eriksen at Euro 2021. He collapsed just like Foe, but this time, thanks to the AED, he survived and even returned to the pitch. Today, Foe's number 23 shirt is retired by Man City, and in Lyon, a street near the training ground is named after him. Foe is gone, but that tragedy taught the entire football world how to better protect its players. 7. The FA bans women's football, 1921, a lost half-century. Let's travel back to the early days of football, specifically the 1910s and 20s. When men went off to fight in World War I, women took to the pitch. Women's teams like Dick Kerr's Ladies became a phenomenon. On Boxing Day 1920, they played a charity match at Goodison Park, Everton Stadium, attracting 53,000 spectators with more than 10,000 locked outside. This number surpassed many men's matches at the time, proving just how hot women's football was. However, just a year later, the FA dealt a fatal blow. On December 5, 1921, they banned men's clubs from letting women use their pitches, citing the reason, "The game of football is quite unsuitable for females and ought not to be encouraged." This blow was like locking the door on an entire generation of female players, pushing them to public parks and fields, turning the sport from a glorious spectacle into a sidelined pastime. The consequences weren't limited to England. Many European nations followed suit, turning the ban into an invisible social norm. Women's football spent nearly 50 years in the dark, surviving only through local leagues and the resilience of a few amateur teams. It wasn't until the 1970s, when the wave of feminism spread and FIFA started paying attention, that the ban was finally lifted. But the price was too high, a lost half-century of development. Today, when we look at the Women's World Cup with millions of viewers, few know that there was a time when a single ban from the FA made the dreams of thousands of girls vanish in the blink of an eye. 8. Kuwait stops playing because of a whistle, World Cup 1982. Next up is a story that changed how football matches are managed. The 1982 World Cup group stage match between Kuwait and France seemed normal, but it turned into one of the weirdest moments in football history. France was leading 3-1, and in the 85th minute, they scored again to make it 4-1. But the problem was, the Kuwaiti players had completely stopped playing because they heard a whistle from the stands and thought the referee had stopped the game. Right then, the Kuwaiti team swarmed the ref to protest, but the real climax was when Prince Sheikh Fahad Al Ahmad Al Sabah, president of the Kuwait Football Association, suddenly stormed onto the pitch. He signaled his players not to continue if that goal stood. Referee Miroslav Stupa, in a controversial decision, actually disallowed the French goal. It was a rare moment in World Cup history where a big boss from the stands could literally change the scoreline. This moment quickly went into FIFA's black book, not just because it was bizarre, but because it raised the question: who actually controls the game, the referee or politics? After the incident, FIFA tightened match security and established a clear principle. Only the referee has the power to decide on the pitch, and no one, not even a prince, is allowed to intervene. France still won 4-1, Kuwait was eliminated early, and Prince Fahad became accidentally famous. To this day, the 1982 World Cup is still remembered for that magical whistle reversal. 9. The Chapecoense Tragedy, 2016. Next up is another tragic story, and what makes it even harder to swallow is that it happened so recently. November 2016, Chapecoense, a small Brazilian club, was poised to write the greatest fairy tale. They had reached the final of the Copa Sudamericana, the second most prestigious tournament in South America, for the first time ever. The flight carrying coach Caio Jr. and his team took off for Medellin, Colombia, amidst the excitement of the entire city of Chapeco. But the miracle stopped in midair. The plane ran out of fuel and crashed near Medellin, claiming the lives of 71 people, including almost the entire squad, coaching staff, and accompanying journalists. Only 6 people survived, including 3 players, faces that would later become symbols of the will to live. The entire football world fell into a day of mourning. Atlético Nacional, their opponents in the final, actively asked to concede the trophy to Chapecoense. The South American Football Confederation agreed and awarded them the honorary championship, a trophy the team could never lift together. The Arena Condá Stadium was packed with weeping fans, while across the globe, from Europe to Asia, clubs observed a minute of silence. The aftermath went beyond grief. FIFA and federations subsequently tightened air safety regulations for clubs, especially regarding charter flights. The Chapecoense tragedy reminded the world that outside the pitch, players are just normal human beings, facing risks and mortality like anyone else. Although the loss was irreplaceable, Chapecoense's story brought a ray of light. Just 1 year later, with a patchwork squad of young players, loanees, and a few surviving veterans, they won the 2017 Santa Catarina State Championship. Every match they played was filled with support from Brazil and the world, as if football itself had joined hands to lift the team from the ashes. From the deepest pain, Chapecoense left an immortal message. Football is not just about goals, but about unity and the mental strength to rise above tragedy. 10. Aguero's 94th minute goal, Premier League 2011/12. Finally, the event that kick-started an empire that has dominated and is still dominating the Premier League. May 13th, 2012, the final match day. Man United and Man City were both on 86 points, but City had the superior goal difference. If City beat QPR, they were champions. At the Stadium of Light, United beat Sunderland 1-0 and temporarily moved to 89 points. Meanwhile, at the Etihad, City was shockingly trailing QPR 1-2 until the 99th minute. Red Devils fans were already partying, believing the 20th title was securely in the bag. The prospect of City finishing second was right before their eyes. Minute 90 plus 2, Edin Dzeko headed in the equaliser, a glimmer of hope. But 1 point wasn't enough. City was still 2 points behind United. Time ticked down to the final seconds. Sir Alex and his players at the other stadium were holding hands, smiling. But little did United know. And then, minute 93:20, history changed course. Sergio Aguero received the ball from Gaio Clichy, finding Mario Balotelli, the famous bad boy who hadn't made a single assist all season. In a moment orchestrated by fate, Balotelli slipped, fell, but still managed to slide the ball into the gap. Aguero broke through, bypassed the defender, and rifled a hammer of a shot into the net. The Etihad exploded. At that moment, commentator Martin Tyler screamed, "Aguero!" A sound that became immortal in Premier League history. United was stunned into silence. Sir Alex stood frozen on the away pitch. At the Etihad, fans poured onto the field, crying, hugging, and screaming. For Aguero, that goal made him a legend. As for Balotelli, a player with exactly one assist in his entire Premier League career, he is remembered for providing the most important pass in the league's history. That crucial goal delivered Man City's first title in the Sheikh Mansour era and marked the start of over a decade of English dominance. Since then, Man City has won the Premier League 8 times, claimed their first Champions League title, and secured countless other trophies. That's it for today. What do you guys think of this list? If there's any topic you want me to cover next, please comment down below and I'll make a video for you. And as always, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for me.